This is Community Unity Now. This is Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and I am Trudy Leong, Administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and our founder. Thank you again to our founder, Catherine Brown D. Tycoon, for Community Unity Now. And today we have a really, really special guest, an activist extraordinaire, and her name is Carolyn J. Ruff. Hi, Carolyn. How are you?
Hi, how are you? And thanks for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for all that you do. First of all, can you tell us about what inspired you to activism and when did you first become an activist?
What really inspired me to be an activist uh, back in during Laquan McDonald in 2014, when his viral video came out,
Mm-hmm.
and I became an activist then in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
But what really, really inspired me was Reverend Jesse Jackson, how I joined the movement and joined the Rainbow Push organization in 2004. And because I sung in the choir at Rainbow Push. And so we used to do a lot of traveling with him. And I used to watch him. And, you know, we used to do a lot of freedom marching. And we used to march in some of the places here in Chicago. Then we would travel cross country, like places like Georgia and, you know, so many different places. And so I remember when they had the Louisiana water break.
Katrina,
Uh,
with after Hurricane Katrina? Mm-hmm.
yes, Katrina. That was my first experience traveling with Reverend Jesse Jackson and the organization. And we took lots of food and clothing and blankets to the different shelters where people were placed. And that was so, I mean, it was so inspiring to see uh, how grateful the people accepted us. So that's what really inspired me to become an activist.
Was there some advice that Reverend Jackson gave you?
Yes, exactly. You know, he sometimes he would tell us, sometimes you don't have, when you're marching, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to express yourself. When you can do a silent march, and that's more powerful than uttering what you want the public to know, because they never know what you're thinking. And so that really meant a lot because, you know, since I've been an activist, you know, I usually be walking back and forth, not saying anything, but I get a lot of attention. So that really stuck to my head. Yes.
So were you doing the same kind of silent activism in the case of the prosecution of Jason Van Dyke when you were active in that case?
When I was active in that case, it wasn't silent. It was, you know, it was not like like the marches that they're having now. You know, it was more peaceful. You know, there was no looting, no burning, no whatever. It was a peaceful march, but we made our voices heard, and it took us a while to really get justice for Laquan McDonald, but it was a learning process because, you know, within that, how I would go back and forth to court to represent Laquan McDonald because I felt his spirit. Although he wasn't with me physically, but I felt him close to my heart, and I had a picture of him. And so I would go every day that they would have the hearing for Jason Van Dyke. I started out with the preliminary trial, and that went on for about almost a year. And then when he got convicted, that went on for about 2 weeks.
Can you describe how Judge Vincent Gone, the presiding judge in the Laquan McDonald case, how did the judge treat you?
Oh, well, at first he really, like, how can I say it? At first, when I was held in contempt, I wasn't aware that he had made an announcement that if you interfere with the hearing or if you hold anything up, you will be held in contempt. Well, that particular day, I had a bad hair day. So I wore a scarf on my head, and you really can't wear a hat or anything on your head, not unless it's like, now unless it's like if you're a Muslim or whatever, then you're allowed to wear something around your head. But that day, I wasn't able to sit inside the court when he made that announcement. So after the court hearing was over, I was standing at an elevator and I saw Jason Van Dyke and his lawyers coming towards me, and they got on the other elevator, and I held an index card up saying justice for Laquan McDonald. Well, I was immediately escorted back to the court to stand in front of Judge Goyne, and I apologized to him before he could ask me the question because I told him I really didn't know that, that you had made the announcement. I was on the outside. And so a couple of people was sitting there hearing him talk to me. I think one of his team said, yeah, she wasn't in when you made that announcement. So the judge said, okay, Carolyn, we're going to let it go this time, but please be careful. And I said, okay, Judge Gorn. So ever since then, it seemed like he just started uh, talking to me and being, not really being my friend, but just knowing that I'm a nice person. He didn't look at me as being an activist or, a troublemaker or whatever. So that's how I got to know him. And then, like young people, they have to appear in court. They will call me. And if Judge Goen has the case, uh, he would call me back in the chambers and ask me, oh, how's things going? Do you need anything? Stuff like that. So that's how I became his friend and his team friend. So
Were you
I'm,
part of an organization when you were there, or were you going on your own?
I was, well, the name of my organization is Black Lives Matter Women of Faith. And I was going to represent Black Lives Matter Women of Faith and going on my own, yes. And sometimes I would be in court by myself, you know. And one time I was in court, they wanted the mother to appear, and they had talked to her, and she was saying that she didn't have a babysitter and stuff like that. And so Laquan McDonald's lawyers asked me, will I be willing to babysit? That's how they got to know me, because I would, they would see me in court every day of a court hearing. And I said, sure, I don't mind, because, the judge said, well, if she don't appear in court, we're going to hold her in contempt. So she did appear, but she got a babysitter, so I didn't have to babysit.
Can you describe how you use your own money to help the homeless and travel the country to protest? Because you not only do that, you do so much other activism too.
Yes, yes. Well, when I became an activist, I had said that, I'm not going to join, I don't want grant money. I don't want anything. I want to do it on my own, because it feels like when I use my own money, it feels like I'm doing something for the community. I'm doing something for the families that call me and to stand with them when they lose their loved ones, you know. So I have a savings account set aside for me to do all of this. You know, like I have like 2 events a year. My anniversary event just passed, and that event, which was my 7th year event, I fed the inmates uh, families and like giving them groceries and their children book bags and stuff like that. So I had a food giveaway 2 weeks ago at 26 in California. But I would be traveling in October, and I would use my own money to travel to Georgia to stand with this family in the loss of her son. So yes, I make sure that I put money aside so when someone called me, I'm ready to go. I don't have to ask people, loan me this, I can't go, et cetera, et cetera. You got to pay for this. I don't want them to pay for anything. I just use my own money.
So, how long have you been using your own money for activism, and how did you get inspired to do this at first?
Under Reverend Jackson, how I became inspired, and then after Laquan McDonald in 2014, and then when I really became an activist on my own, it was like in 2016, and I would march with different families here in Chicago. And then, other families started losing their loved ones by police brutality, and they see or they've seen the work that I do, word of mouth or whatever. And then that family would ask me to come and stand with them in solidarity, and that's what I would do. When I went to Fort Worth, Texas, I don't know if you knew anything about Atakiana Jefferson. She was killed. It was before Breonna Taylor. It was Atakiana Jefferson, and she was killed in her home, but with her nephew standing beside her. And what happened with that? She and her nephew was playing video games, and her door was open, and so one of the neighbors called for a wellness checkup. Instead of the police coming and pronouncing himself, they decide to sneak around the back door, around the side of the house. And Tatiana and her nephew heard someone in the backyard. They didn't know who, and it was the police. And so by the time she looked up, the police shot her in her own bedroom with her son, with her nephew standing next to her. So that was really devastating. I'm still fighting to get justice for her. Anytime her sisters or her brother asked me to come to Fort Worth to stand with them, I'm there, so. And then with Breonna Taylor, I just came back from that, standing to get justice for Breonna Taylor, as well as Micaiah uh, Bryant. So you know what happened to her. She was killed also in Columbus, Ohio. Um, so I won't go into details with that, but she was also killed by the police. And then, of course, I traveled to Minnesota to march for uh, George Floyd, and so, I've been traveling all over the country, really. So, and I enjoy standing with families that need, my support. So that's how I managed to do all of that.
So for Tatiana Jefferson, they're in Texas, but then whenever they need you, because the case has been, I think it happened in 2019, and the officer was indicted, but he still hasn't been tried yet. So whenever they
Oh,
need you to be with them in a hearing or some in the courtroom, then they'll ask you, and then you would try to be there with them.
I would go, yes. I
Mm-hmm.
would go, yes. Right now, I do work part time as a crossing guard in Niles, but Usually, we have a lot of school days off as well, and if a family called me during the days that I'm off from school or whatever, or if they call me like a weekend march or something, I will go. Yes, with no problem. That's why I save money just for that. So, yes.
Uh, could you tell us about how you use your money to help the homeless as well?
At Christmas time, and then during the year, I usually go grocery shopping for them. I would go and they would write me a list of the things that they need, and I would go and spend my money to shop for them. And then at Christmas time, I use my own money to give them clean blankets and whatever they need to wash their clothes, or whatever, like if they need a Bible or something, like this lady asked me if I could bring her a Bible, and I did. So I usually do a lot for the homeless as well.
So
You
where do
know,
you find where do you go to find these homeless people around the citywide or where?
Lawrence is where I adopted the homeless on Lawrence. And now that I'm protesting to get justice for uh, Natika Bryant, I see a lot of homeless over by Copa, on West Chicago Avenue. So I might, this Christmas, I probably go and serve them as well. Like today, I met this homeless lady. She said that, she has no place to go. She's been sleeping at the bus stops and stuff like that. And she was hungry. And if I could help her. So I gave her money so she could eat, you know. And I just feel so bad because, it seems like they forget the homeless, and I try to do whatever I can to help them, and put a smile on their face.
Housing is a human right, and people have to eat too. And
Yeah.
a lot of homeless people have some sort of mental issues. Do you help people in other ways, or do you help feed them and give them clothes and things they need?
Yes, I do. I usually like take a lot of my clothes to, like the Salvation Army, because they help people like when they, lose their homes or whatever. I usually take a lot of clothes to them, and other places where they give away clothes and stuff like that. And sometimes I might have like not like a yard sale, but just give away clothes that I haven't used or whatever. So, I do a lot of that as well.
Let's move on to something else that you also do. Could you describe your work in bringing awareness about a business that was having a negative impact on its community in Bronzeville, and how Alderwoman Sophie King ended up working with you?
Yes, what happened, there was a store in Charlotte, North Carolina. This young lady was beaten up brutally by the employee, the owner of that store in Charlotte. It was a husband and wife, brutally beat this young lady. They put her in the hospital. She was pregnant at the time. And then the owners live here in one of the suburbs. And plus they had a store in Bronzeville. And so I found out, and from day one, I started my protest there. This happened in Charlotte, March 7th, 2017. And then March 13, 2017, I started my protesting to protest that store. And it took me 865 days nonstop because they were open 7 days a week. So I would drive there 7 days a week. Even when I go to church on Sundays, I would leave church to drive there to continue to protest. But while I was protesting or boycotting that store, I was also educating the community. So and May 31st, which was 865 days, I was arrested by the police. Now, I was arrested in 2017, August 8th, and on false charges by that particular company. And so I went to jail for that, and I had to get a lawyer. And of course, I had to get my name expunged and everything. And then they would constantly call the police on me because I was educating the community, and they would constantly call the cops on me. The cops would come and write me bogus tickets. They would pay the cops off to, like harass me. And so May 31st, they called the cops on me, and the cops tackled me. It was two cops that tackled me to the ground. They handcuffed me and they injured my shoulder, you know, and just trying to put handcuffs on me. And then on the video, they said they were taking me to jail. But once we got in the squad car with my hands behind me, they said, take her to the University of Chicago. And I was really fearful for my life because I didn't know where they were taking me, you know. And so I ended up at the University of Chicago to be evaluated because they said I was crazy. And it was just their way of getting me away from that particular business.
And then what did the doctor say there when you were evaluated?
Well, the nurse is saying, well, you don't need to be here. There's nothing wrong with you. And then the doctor saw me after the nurse, and he said the same thing. Why are you here? You're exercising your First Amendment right. You shouldn't be here. So, so they called a good friend of mine came and picked me up, but they were going to call an Uber to take me back to my car where it was parked.
About how
But
many?
a good friend of mine came and got me.
About how many hours were you protesting there every day, and how did you educate the public?
Well, I had flyers made from my own money to give them uh, 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 other stores that they could patronize. So that's how, I had all the stores on that piece of paper that I would pass out, or that flyer that I would pass out to the community. And that's how they were able to learn about other stores in that community. Because I would hear people saying, oh, I didn't know this. I'm glad that you're passing this out, because I didn't know that we had these different stores that sells the same thing as the store that I was boycotting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was really educational for the community.
So could you give us some more details about what exactly happened in this store?
Well, in Charlotte, North Carolina, like I said, they um, beat this young lady up. You could bring it up on YouTube, but I'm not gonna reveal the store. Um,
And were you able to, when you say you
that,
educated the public, did you, when you were protesting, did you bring this information to the public and to the people that were going by? And was there anyone else protesting with you?
well, started out, it was a crowd of people for about maybe 150 days. And then after that, I was there alone, and I would go every day. Even when I got off work, I would drive there because they close at 7, and school, I got there like around 4 o'clock. So I had a chance to educate the community for 2 or 3 hours. Even when in the winter, I would sit in my car and I would always get that same parking space right next to the store. And when I see people going in there, and when they come out, I would hand them a flyer and I would say, here, you could patronize this store too. It's not too far from your house, et cetera, et cetera. And then I would explain to them why that this store is being boycotted.
And how did you come to work with Alderwoman Sophie King on about this store?
Well, we had a meeting. What happened, there was a meeting um, at the city council meeting. and I got up and I spoke about uh, the store that I was boycotting and what they were doing in the store and stuff like that. And, I, because of the fact that I was arrested, that kind of like traumatized me. And I'm still traumatized from that. And so before I knew anything, tears was just floating out of, I was tearing up and I couldn't finish telling them. So this man that saw me, he knew the story too, so he finished. And that's when Sophie asked, Alderwoman Sophie King asked, do you know this young lady? Do you know how I could get in touch with her? And so that's how we were able to set up a meeting for her to talk to me about the situation that I went through.
So, what was happening in the store that the older woman, Sophia King, became concerned about?
Well, they were doing some things that, our children would go inside the store and they would cheat them out of their monies. I was there when a parent sent her daughter inside the store and they shortchanged her. And then even the little kids, they became fond of me because they would see me out there every day. They would go in the store and I would tell them, count your money before you leave or whatever. So when they come out, they said, oh, I just bought this and it only cost this and they only gave me this. And I said, well, they shortchanged you. You need to go back inside the store and get the remainder of your money. And that's how they became close to me. And plus, I felt that that store should have been shut down because of their employees, how they would call me out of my name, how they would call me the N word, how they would call me the B word, and all of this. And it got back to Alderman Sophia King. So, I think from there, you know, I don't think she renewed their lease or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And then finally they closed. And what happened on the day that they closed?
They closed May 31st. They claimed that they sold the business to another business owner. And I noticed when I passed by there, they have professional security guards. This particular store had people off the street doing their security, untrained people. But the business that's there now, they have professional people, and that's what make the business growing. And so sometimes I would just sit and watch, and I noticed that they are so professional, that I'm glad that they're in that location. Because a lot of the people that live in that location, they don't have money to go to different stores or whatever. And I noticed one of the stores that was close by the community, they finally shut down too. So this is the only store that they can rely on. So I'm just glad that they're in that location now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Carolyn J. Ruff, we're just about out of time. So thank you so much for joining us. We have so much else to talk about, but that is all the time we have. So Carolyn J. Ruff, thank you so much for being our guest on Community Unity Now. Thank you, Catherine Brown D. Tycoon. And this is Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, my co-host, and I am Trudy Leong, Administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Have a great night, be safe, be happy, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.